Thank you, Senator Sanders, and thanks for your leadership on this. It's an honor to be here with my friend and colleague, the Senator from Vermont, to talk about our joint resolution to force a vote on U.S. military involvement in a civil war going on in Yemen. Whether you're present in the Senate chamber today or whether you're tuning in from home, I hope you'll listen closely for the next hour or so that we can fill you in on the unauthorized Middle East war that your United States government is supporting. This war in Yemen has killed tens of thousands of innocent victims, human beings, lest we forget, each with immeasurable, innate, God-given dignity. This war has created refugees, orphans, and widows. It has cost many millions of dollars. And believe it or not, at the end of the day, according to at least one U.S. government report, it has arguably undermined our fight against terrorist threats such as ISIS, rather than advancing those efforts. I'll expand on these uncomfortable facts here in a few minutes. But for now, let's focus on just one thing. Our military's involvement in Yemen has not been authorized by the United States Congress, as is required by the U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution is pretty clear on this point. It says that Congress shall have the power to declare war. Congress, not the President, not the Pentagon, but Congress. This is the branch of government most accountable to the people at the most regular intervals. And it makes sense that this power would only be granted to that branch of government. Yet, in 2015, President Obama initiated our military involvement in Yemen without permission from Congress, without an authorization for the use of military force, without a declaration of war. The current administration has continued Obama's war. So, Senator Sanders and I, along with Senator Murphy and our 6 other co-sponsors, are giving Congress a chance to fix this error by debating and voting on our nation's continued involvement in this illegal, unauthorized war in Yemen. Now, if, as our opponents claim, if this war is necessary, then surely they'll be willing to come down to this floor within the Senate chamber and defend it. Surely they'll be willing to come onto the floor of the Senate and onto the floor of the House and seek authorization from Congress, as the Constitution demands. Let's have an honest reckoning about this war today. Now, at this very moment, a tragedy is unfolding in Yemen. And very sadly, it's a tragedy for which our nation shares some blame. Here are just a few facts about this war in Yemen, which is now approaching its 3rd year. 15 million human souls in Yemen lack clean water and sanitation. 8 million are at risk of starvation. The Yemeni people have been visited by the worst cholera outbreak in recorded human history, over 1 million cases. Every 10 minutes, a child under the age of 5 dies of preventable causes. A total of 10,000 civilians have been killed in this war. 40,000 more civilians have been wounded in this war. I think it's important to discuss the human toll that this war is inflicting. And I think it's especially important to have discussions like this one at the outset, so that as we go into a conflict, the stakes are clear. For thousands of human beings, the decision we make in this chamber will make the difference between life and death. This is one of the many reasons why it's so important to keep reminding ourselves that the Founding Fathers were really clear about this. They didn't leave any real ambiguity in terms of identifying who has the power to make a decision like this one. Who has the power to decide when we go to war? Article 1, Section 8 says that Congress shall have the power to declare war. Now, from time to time, I hear it argued that declarations of war are somehow antiquated. They're outdated. They're anachronisms, akin to ceremonial relics like powdered wigs or the keys to the city, akin to a society whose principal mode of transportation involved the horse and a buggy. But it isn't true. These principles are as true today as they were then. Nothing about those principles has become outdated. If you read the Founding Fathers, it is really clear that they thought the power to declare war was, in fact, important. And they deliberately considered the matter and withheld it from the president for a reason. They did not vest this power in the office of the presidency. And that was a conscious, deliberate, and I believe wise choice. To quote Alexander Hamilton in Federalist number 69, the Founding Fathers wanted their president to be much inferior in power to a king. Kings declare war unilaterally. They can make life or death military decisions on a whim if they want to, and they don't need to go and seek support from the public before doing so. In our system, presidents, by contrast, have to garner the support of the public and of the legislative branch before initiating wars. Far from a unilateral decision, the decision to go to war in America is supposed to be based on collaboration and consensus so that our nation will be united to the greatest degree possible. When we go through trying conflicts, at that moment when unity is what's so badly needed. So, which does the modern executive resemble more today? A president, as the Founding Fathers understood that term, or a king? The answer is uncomfortably clear from the string of unauthorized military excursions that presidents from both political parties have initiated in recent decades. Now, of course, some people claim that the president has broad constitutional authority to make war as commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Now, they're absolutely right. The President of the United States is, in fact, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. But this is not the beginning and the end of the question. This does not mean the President may authorize at will military excursions around the globe for any reason or no reason at all without authorization from Congress. It does not mean that. It means nothing close to that. Only Congress can authorize a military campaign. Once Congress has done so, then the President has broad authority, vast discretion to decide how specifically to command the armed forces to victory. Now, there is one important, notable exception to this bedrock principle, and that exception arises specifically in the event of an attack on the United States. The founders, you see, were wise, and they anticipated that there could be threats to the homeland so serious that it might be physically impossible for Congress to respond quickly enough. So they reserved for the president the power to, quote, repel sudden attacks, close quote, in the words of James Madison. But clearly, this strategy, we might describe it as a break glass in case of emergency kind of strategy. It's that kind of power. It is a break glass in times of emergency kind of power. It's supposed to be used only under extreme, extraordinary circumstances, when Congress cannot convene in time to save the nation. The founders did not intend for the commander-in-chief power to be used to justify military intervention in civil wars 8,000 miles away. That authorization can come only from this body, in the form of a declaration of war or in the form of an authorization for the use of military force. To date, we have not considered either one of these, much less voted on them and passed them in the case of this civil war in Yemen.